Lady, recognize the gentleman, Mr. Rogers, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Shuren, for being here. I can see how it gets confusing. This committee asked the FDA just a very short number of years ago to regulate tobacco, and they're going to generate some $2 billion over 5 years on a product that if you use as directed will kill you. I'd say it's fairly confusing messages to the FDA, so for that I'm going to apologize for what Congress did to you, and I certainly could find lots of places for that $2 billion when it comes to medical research to do something pretty spectacular that will never find, it's certainly not going to find its way there. But I guess what it confuses me, and I too have been looking at the National Venture Capital Association, mainly because they're the canary in the coal mine. If they're the first ones to give indication if in fact they're going to change their investment habits into companies who are innovating when it comes to medical devices. And the survey results are a bit frightening. So you believe that medical devices that are approved by the FDA, they advance American public health. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree.
And would you agree with Commissioner Hamburg that the FDA has a role to play in ensuring that medical device companies stay in the United States and want to bring their products to the market here first? There's some advantage to that, is there not?
Yes.
So, and I know we're saying to some degree nothing to see here, we're moving on, we're trying to get through this, and I hope that you do, but would you find it concerning that according to this survey that 44% of American venture capitalist firms are now going to invest in life science companies in Europe and Asia? I mean, it's clearly a shift. I mean, is that concerning to you?
Well, it does concern me to see investments not going into development of products here for the U.S. And I have to tell you, I've been on the record with that beforehand, and it's one of the drivers for some of the policies we have in place. We've been out meeting with the venture capital community. Ross Jaffe is going to be up here testifying. Ross and I have spoken on many occasions. And I'll tell you, and Ross can tell me if I'm not telling the truth, but some of the top things of their concerns was, I mentioned that benefit risk determination, taking into account patient tolerance for risk, recognizing that when you have truly novel first-time technology that you can't expect it to be a home run, you got to view that a little bit differently. All of that is baked into this framework, a common framework between us and industry that is explicit, that will be a part of the record. A second is incentivizing getting the early clinical studies to start here in the U.S. And those policies were developed in part directly out of those concerns. The innovation pathway was features of that were things that the venture capital community had raised as could be helpful to them to help some of these breakthrough products get to market.
Right.
We have taken that deeply into
I'm just going to reclaim the time, and I appreciate those efforts, but what they're also saying is that the reason that investment shift is because, quote, the unpredictability at the FDA. So I understand you tried to make some changes. Did you hear that from those venture capital firms about the unpredictability of the FDA?
Yes, and that's why a number of the actions we're taking are meant to address predictability in terms of better guidance, better decision-making, in terms of better oversight on the decision-making that we put in place. For folks who may be interested, we did put out an overview that covers all the actions we're taking, and it puts a list of everything we're doing, and if we've achieved it, a link to all that information. I will make sure that our Office of Legislation, I think that's been passed out, will make sure that is sent to everyone, and when and that is updated every time we take another action.
And I understand your concern. The one thing that worried me a little bit is you said you sent out an email to your staff on the less burdensome approach. Sorry, but that doesn't sound like a great plan to me. Sent a lot of emails, but...
well, that's why we follow that up in terms of specifically addressing it in guidance.
But my point being here, Doctor, I appreciate it. I hope you understand the gravity of it. And just putting out a report certainly hasn't deterred the long list of folks who come into Congress every day and saying they're having these huge problems. Investment is shifting overseas. The smaller folks are losing investment as we speak. And so we need a little fire in the belly here. If you're truly trying to change that equation, it has to happen now. We don't have time for reports and lighthearted emails about how we ought to change for the future. I appreciate you having to defend this, But at the same time, if we don't change it, we jeopardize having to have our devices manufactured and innovated in Asia and Europe. I don't think that's good for U.S. consumers. Oh, and by the way, we made it more difficult because we also applied a tax to the companies who were successful enough to get through what is a very unpredictable FDA process, which means they're also hiring less and innovating less. I mean, the policies here don't work together. And that's why I think people like me are very, very frustrated with the FDA, knowing that we've asked you to do some really dumb things in the past. But this stuff is so crucially important for our consumers and the folks who need these medical devices. We got to have a little urgency in our approach here, and I just don't see it.
Well, I would say actually we've had the urgency. 2010, we went out and we went across the country to get input from industry, from others. We pushed very quickly to get out reports and recommendations. I will tell you, I got letters from some of your colleagues telling me to slow down. I heard from industry, folks, slow down, more time for conversation. And our feeling was, we can't wait. We know there are these issues, and that's why we moved forward. We put our plan in the beginning of 2011, and we've been marching relentlessly forward. I keep hearing from people, industry has even said, can you slow down? You're putting out too many stuff. And it's sort of, there's a lot of things that if we don't work them together and fix, rather than just a few little things, we won't have the impact we want to have. And that email I sent out is not so it's fluff. Quite frankly, leadership starts at the top. And to do that and communicate with my staff, I have to be out there. I have to be out in front. I got to put my name on it, and that's what that email